Hi, friends. Hello. Happy Friday. Whoosh! It's been a week. It has been a week. Like a really long week. Anybody else feel that way? Hello. I see friends popping in. Laura, Cherie, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. And Rhonda. No worries, Laura. You're going to catch it on the replay. Super excited to be here today. We had a brand new Gina K Designs release. My new stamp set released yesterday. So there's been a lot building up to the yesterday's release. Hi, Jesse from Florida. So it's been a week. It has been a wild and woolly week. So I have a really fun card to share today. I also have the inspiration for the brand new stamp set with Gina K. My newest stamp set is called Be Encouraged, and today I'm mashing that stamp set up with two other stamp sets in my Gina K line, and we're going to do. Hi, Catherine. We're going to do just a super easygoing washi watercolor tutorial again today. You know, watercolor always, right? So I see everybody popping in. It's so exciting to see everybody here. Okay, it's Friday in Maryland. Yesterday it was like 70 degrees. Today it's in the, like, let's see, what is it? What's it say? 43. And it's like super windy. So, Maryland, we have the weirdest weather ever. Um, it could be freezing one day and it could be 70 the next. So, and I know it's cold in a lot of places all over the country. So, okay, enough chit chat, right? Let's get to it. All right, I just have a really fun card tutorial today. I've already talked about it. Let's go ahead and head to our down camera. Let me move my screens a little bit here. Mary had a very sweet comment. So everybody's popping in. I'm so grateful you're here. Let's just get to it, right? Okay. So yesterday was the brand new stamp set released for Be Encouraged. And this was one of the cards that I did for that release. And if you haven't checked out the latest video, I do have a video on my channel. If you missed the live with Gina K, no worries. I do have a video sharing all of the inspiration that I shared for the new Be Encouraged set. And I will be sharing these in social media and my email list. And we're gonna make some fun cards. But here's a really fun card. I just love that card. Love this card. Talk a little bit about some of the inspiration. But here was one of the cards that I did for the release, and it was inspired. It was sort of vintagey inspired, and inspired by my grandmother's hydrangeas and her always giving me mint tea when I was over there visiting. So this card was inspired by that. And here's the card or something like this that we're going to make today. I just kind of took the vintagey feel to another level and mashed it up with some other stamp sets. So we're going to do some washi watercolor and talk a little bit about that along the way. Hey, Kelly. So yeah, I am streaming on Facebook and YouTube. I never really know if it's going to go well on Facebook. I've always done it on YouTube and it's pretty stable. So Kelly's popping in from Facebook. So super cute. All right, let's do a quick look at the supplies. I don't have the supplies linked down below in the description, but I will after the show. So, yeah, welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. Didn't get the supplies in. We'll get them in after the show. Okay, here is the new stamp set with Gina K Designs called Be Encouraged. And today we're going to be using this wonky teacup. I have a lot of teacups, friends. A lot. My family, we've got like 2 shelves full of teacups. So I'm a big tea drinker. I'm the only tea drinker in the house. Everyone else drinks coffee. I don't do coffee. I do tea. This is my wonky teacup. This is that little fun tea bag. We're going to be using the mint, the hydrangeas in the set, and some of the leafery. And I'm mashing it up with, the background from this set. This is, I think Friend Loves at All Times. I really like this background. It's got this kind of vintagey flair to it. So I'm going to mash it up with that. And then I brought a set out from the vault. It's not really in the vault. It's still available with Gina K Designs, but it's called Blooming Wild, or Bloomin' Wild, no G. And I want to use these really funky blooms in this set. I love this stamp set. This is one of my sets that has no sentiments in it. And it is just wild and woolly and funky. And it's got these big honking blooms in it. So we're going to be using all 3 of those. Hello, Cherie. She says, here I am. She's here. Okay. I'm going to be using Strathmore Ready Cut Watercolor. This should be no surprise to everyone. I'm using this. I use this all the time. I'm using the cold press today. And I have Jelly Bean Green cardstock with Gina K that I'm going to be using today as well. Let's find a spot for my stamp set. Okay. Now, the inks that I'm going to be using, we're going to be doing a mixture of watercoloring. And I'm keeping in my theme of using some of my more budget-friendly watercolors. I'm using my Winsor Newton Cotman. And I've talked about this in the past. I'm going to be using dioxazine purple, a little bit of lemon yellow, and we're going to talk a little bit about greens. So that's this in this set that I'm going to be using. Let's move that over there. Now, my colors that I'm going to be using for my hydrangeas are Plum Punch and Edible Eggplant. I love these 2 colors together. They're the perfect hydrangea colors. They're actually the colors of my hydrangea when it blooms. It did not bloom well last year. So if anybody in the chat has some good advice for hydrangeas, I'd love to hear it. I grew my hydrangea from a little tiny plant that was dying into this big honking bush. And in the last couple years, it hasn't been doing so well. I think I need to trim it all the way back to the ground. That's what my friend Carla shared with me. She's an amazing gardener. So I think I need to do that. And I probably should do that this weekend. But anyway, Wild Dandelion, I'm going to be using this color for a little bit of extra detail. And then I have all of my greens. And part of my watercolor chit chat today is going to be about the greens and the purples. So I'm going to talk a little bit about watercolor greens and achieving them and get this whole like vintagey look. So I've got Jelly Bean Green, Grass Green, and Fresh Asparagus. And these are the 3 greens that I'm going to be using. Okay. Now for, so I have my die cut piece, I have my cardstock, and I have my card base. I cut this in some Ready Cut watercolor, and I used my Master Layouts. I think this is Master Layouts 11 die for that. So let's get going. I need a piece of watercolor so that we can begin to stamp all of our images out. I also have a brush. I have a little brush. Last week we talked about thirsty brushes and brushes that aren't so thirsty. This is a brush that's not so thirsty. I've got a little bit of water here too. And I've got the glue and all the things that you need to assemble a card. But again, those supplies will be linked below in the description after the show. Okay. If Kelly's still on, she will be super proud of me for using my Cotmans, my Cotman watercolors. Kelly is an artist friend of mine, and we've had many conversations, me, Kelly, and Jess, about my not liking the Cotman watercolors, but I've given them some more love lately, and I'm actually kind of digging working with them. So let's just get going. I'm just chatting away. I've got my wonky, okay, big truck just went by. I've got my wonky teacup. I'm going to stamp it down I'm going to stamp all of my elements down onto my watercolor paper first. Then I'm going to do some of the splashy watercoloring. I've talked about this before, but I'm going to share and show how the Gina K inks are water reactive and how I use that to my advantage for some washy watercolor magic. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this down. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp down all of my pieces first. I've got my hydrangea, my 2 hydrangea pieces. Let's get a smaller block. Here we go. Stamping down all the bits. I tend to stamp everything down first, then start in with my watercoloring, and then, you know, do all the die cutting and assembling. Okay, so I have 2 different sizes of the hydrangea blooms. Hello, Irma. I'm going to stamp the bigger bloom 3 times in the plum punch. Give myself a little bit of room for die cutting. All right, then I'm going to take my smaller hydrangea bloom. Ooh, thought I had the lid on the wrong place. And stamp this out with some edible eggplant, which is the darker purple. Okay. And I'm going to let that ride for a minute. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead in. The mint's going to go inside there once we've done some watercoloring. I've got the mint leaf here, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp out that mint leaf in fresh asparagus. I love this color. I'm going to stamp this out twice. Oops, a little bit off the screen there. Now, last week, remember I shared, I'm using watercolor paper. So sometimes when you're stamping on the watercolor paper, you're not going to get a really solid impression. But that's okay. You can take your brush and just go ahead in and add a little water to it, and it will just kind of blend that out a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit more water to it in a moment. Now, I've got my 2 blooms. These 2 blooms from Bloomin' Wild are exactly the same. They just go in different directions. So I'm going to stamp one in edible eggplant, and one, the other one in the plum punch. Okay. So I have all of my pieces stamped. I've got this big honkin' leafery piece. It's just one big honkin' leaf. I'm going to stamp this twice in the grass green. I'm just going to put that down here. And it's going to look, let's find another spot for it. Let's just put that one right here. Now it's going to look like it needs, it's a little bit, needs a little bit of washi to it, but that's okay. Now I've got some water. I'm going to just add a little spritz of water just to kind of, I don't want to do it too much, but I'm kind of overdoing it a little bit. You can see how the Gina K inks are starting to disperse, right? And that's the effect I'm looking for. I'm looking for that washy effect. And while they're in there dispersing, you can see them dispersing, I'm just going to go ahead and start to move them around a little bit. I'm going to leave these alone and just kind of utilize the ink that's there. But what I really want to show you is, I'm just, oh, my brush is a little bit wet here. I'm just using what's there and I'm blending it out. And I've done this technique a couple times, and pretty much February has been all about like these washy watercolor techniques on these lives. And I'm just going to let that kind of do its thing. I'm going to come down here. What I love about the edible eggplant and the plum punch is that when they dry, you can see all of the different hues of the color. So this is a dye ink. So, and to make the dye ink, you need other colors to kind of pull that together to make it, right? Different kinds of color. It's a little bit different than watercolor. It's not pigment, but it's dye. And that plum punch, when it's, that's the plum punch. Here's the edible eggplant. When it dries, you can see like some of the other colors that are coming out in it. And that's what I think makes it really super fun. I'm going to let all this dry a little bit. I'm going to turn, being the lefty, I'm going to turn and start to work on this piece right here. Catherine just shared, I really like having the same image oriented in different directions. Yes, I do that a lot in my stamp sets. It helps with creating some variety in the bouquets that I do. Okay, now I'm going to come in with a little bit of sap green. Let me spray these watercolors a little bit just to kind of get them activated. So this is a little bit of sap green. I could use, the reason why I'm choosing sap green, I put some sap green down here, is that it's a lot like grass green in the Gina K line. So it's a nice, like, compatible color. So I've got all of these dye inks doing their dye ink thing. See how they're bleeding? And they're giving me some washy effects. Oh, look at that bottom hydrangea. You see the purples and some of the blue pigments. Let's see if I can get close. Coming out in that hydrangea. Ah, I love it. Okay. Digging it. Now I'm going to come in. Let's go in here with some sap green. I'm getting a little bit nerdy with the colors, which happens, right? I'm going to come in here with some sap green. This is very, very close in color to, like I said, the grass green for Gina K Designs. This right here. And we're going to play with it a little bit. I'm going to get two different versions of sap, two different pools of sap green here. So this is a lot like grass green. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this Payne's Gray. Ooh, that might be too much. Let's see. So this is like a neutral, a gray, and I'm adding that to that green. And I believe I did this last week because I did this on last week's tutorial when we were talking about our earthy kind of tones, earthy palette. Because I felt very grounded and I went with an earthy palette. So I'm going to got two different greens here. Okay, I'm going to turn this a little bit this way. I'm going to do the wet into wet technique. So I've got a little bit of wetness going, a little bit of blurry jelly bean green happening here. Along this side, I'm just adding some water. Looks like I've picked up a little pigment, probably from the bottom of my water cup. Maybe I didn't clean it out well. So I've got a little bit of water on here. Add a little bit of water there. I'm going to pick up some of this sap green and just kind of drop it in. And it's pretty intense. And then just kind of let it do its thing. Just coax it over a little bit. I'm just doing some really swooshy swooshes. And I'm getting a layer. This stamp is really great. A lot of those vessel-like stamps in my line with Gina K are really great for any kind of coloring medium that you're going to use, whether it's watercolor or colored pencil. We've done colored pencil on this channel. I'm leaving a little bit of white over here. I cleaned my brush. Then I'm just kind of coming back and swooshing back a little bit. Got a big puddle right there. I'm just going to kind of coax along. Remember, we did a little bit of the lifting technique on I think that was 2 lives ago. Now I'm kind of digging the way this looks. I'm going to come in with the darker. So this is the same sap green where I've added just a little bit of a neutral color to it to get a little bit more of a darker green. I'm going to do a little little show and tell in a moment about greens and mixing greens. This is more of a botanical. Greens are tough in watercolor because a lot of greens don't look like real leaves. You know, they could be pretty hyper realistic greens. Kind of digging the way that looks. It's got a lot of granulation. I'm going to come in with the very tip of my paper towel and do a little lifting. A little dot. See how I'm just doing a little bit of lifting there? Lifting away some of that color. I'm going to let this dry because we're going to stamp inside of this. I'm not like super worried about the top part of this, the inner part of um, the mug, the cup, because we're going to be covering it with hydrangeas. Now, while that dries, let me grab another piece of watercolor. I'm going to do a little green, a little test of that with, not a little test, a little, I don't know, a little tutorial, I guess, about greens. I'm going to move this to the side. We'll turn this into a little, this is the little watercolor lesson part about some colors. Okay. Yeah, Robbie just shared, I cannot wait to get the set. I'm so into coffee cups. Yes! It's kind of fun. It's whimsical, it's wonky, there's no detail. The point of that set, that design is so that you can add whatever you want into the inside. You can color it, or you can stamp the polka, or we're going to stamp the mint inside of it to create kind of a vintagey look to it. So I'm taking some sap green and I'm just plunking it down here. A lot. I'm just taking a lot of sap green. If you have any questions about watercolor along the way, ooh, looks like I just contaminated it a little bit with some blue. Just getting some more paint down. Feel free to ask them. I'd love to hear about your watercolor adventures. I know we talk about watercolor every week. But okay, got some sap green. Now, I'm going to show you in my watercolor wonderland class. I do this about what in the watercolor mixing part. And this is, you can do this with your Gina K inks too. I'm going to take a little bit of this sap green and I'm just going to do a little wash of it so that you can see what it looks like at full strength. And now I'm going to take a little bit of my Payne's Gray and drop it in. Mix it up. That Payne's Gray is powerful. But look what starts to happen as I add that color in. I start to change it. And I'm actually mixing those two pigments together and getting a darker version of it. I should have hit it a little bit lighter. I added a lot of Payne's Gray in there right out of the gate. So let's do this again, because I want to show you how you can change your color simply by mixing another color in to like neutralize it a little bit. Ooh, little drop of Payne's Gray. Let's mix that up so I can show you a little more of a subtle view. So we're going from a more yellowy, sap green is a little more of a yellow green, adding a little bit of Payne's Gray in there, getting a little darker. Let's add another little droplet of Payne's Gray in there, getting even more olivey. Oh, I love that. I love mixing colors and experimenting. So I know many of you in the chat have recently gotten like the new watercolor sets. Experiment with the colors you have, friends. I need to add a little bit more in here. I think we're getting closer to this version right now. So the more I add a little more Payne's Gray to this, the darker it's going to get. This color right here, see, the more I add, we're going to end up getting closer to Payne's Gray. So you can go from green to gray. I love that. Look at these greens. This green right here, look at that green. All of those greens, all with just two colors. We mix those. This was my nerd out moment for the day on color mixing. Those two colors together to achieve those colors right there. Love it. Okay. Thank you, friends, for indulging me in our nerd out moment. Okay. And learning a little bit about color mixing and having some fun with it. All right, we're going to come back to our pieces here. We've got all this washy color going. And we're going to be die cutting them out. This one is still a little bit wet, so let me give it a quick hit. Right here. Okay. So now we've gotten this. This is a little drier. Love it. Catherine just asked this question. Good question, Catherine. I'm going to pop that up. Does gray work the same with other colors like yellow? So, yes. So you're looking for the color that's going to neutralize it. Gray is pretty amazing for, the gray is pretty amazing like for red. So you're looking for the color that's across from it's on the wheel, on the color wheel. So like here's a red. And then if we take a little bit of purple, it'll start to neutralize it and change it. So the color that's across from it on the color wheel, I like to use grays with the greens, or like, and just add a touch of that Payne's gray in it, and it will change the nature of that color and give it that more botanical look, more natural green. It's really, really cool. Love that. Look at it starting to dry. Love the greens. Love the greens. Okay. I'm going to grab the mint stamp. Mixing colors. Jessie just shared learning how to mix colors. Yes, I love playing with my colors and mixing them up and seeing what you can get. I could do like a whole lesson on it for an entire day, and maybe we will someday. So, okay, my mug here has the it's dry now, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to stamp that mint in the fresh asparagus. Catherine said, across from the color wheel. Friends, if you are, I'll mention this. Let me just go ahead and stamp this down. If you're interested in learning more and you're part of, you can go to craftyourjoy.com and sign up for my free community. And in there, I've got a cheat sheet on the complementary colors and the color wheel with Mission Gold paints, and I start to touch on, there's a free lesson in there, and there's a free download. Cherie just shared, looks like Gina K spruces. You're right. These do look like the Gina K spruce colors, the medium spruce, the light spruce. Love it. Okay, I've got my pattern. I've got that mint stamped inside here. Now I'm just going to take a wet brush and just go over that fresh asparagus, and I'm just activating that color a bit. And then I'm going to come in and only to those 3 little mint sprigs. Then I'm going to come in with my sap green. Now you could do this with your inks. I'm just playing around. I'm just still having a lot of fun this month playing around with some of more of my budget-friendly watercolors. And that was a request from, I think it was Heidi, who asked me to just kind of show the use of some more budget-friendly watercolors. Look at that. That just added a little more extra detail. We layered watercolor on top of this watercolor to get a little bit of a glazing. Ooh, add a little bit of Payne's gray there. A little bit of a glazing. Boy, that wind is whipping, whipping, whipping. Okay. Now, I've got all my pieces. Look at how that color separated. The edible eggplant. Look at how it's separated. This color, that edible eggplant looks just like Moon Glow. It's a Daniel Smith color. I absolutely love it. All right, we've got all of our pieces here. Now, I need to run them through the die cutter. And I've already die cut some of these pieces out for us. So There's the hydrangea die, and I wanted to point out this big honkin' die that is in the Be Encouraged set. Gina, we added that little piece right here so that it would cut out the center of the cup, which is awesome. Love that. So I went ahead and ran these through the die cutter. Let me just go ahead and set that aside. And I die cut all my pieces. Now, once they're fully dry, watercolor fades back a bit. So you can see that this is faded back quite a bit. I'm digging the way all of my hydrangea pieces look. They look very washy. Even my little pieces right here, they got a washy look and feel to them. Look at all the paint on my hands. I've got all my bits, all of my pieces and all my layers. Look at all that color. I just love it. Now, we're going to go in. We're going to add some more detail to the cup, to the mint, to the hydrangea. This time, I'm going to show you how we're going to add some detail with our Gina K inks. So I've got this edible eggplant. I'm just going to drop a little bit of that down on my mat, my glass mat here. Because once my hydrangea pieces faded back, once those colors faded back, you can see that the centers have kind of lost their intensity. So we're just going to add that back in with a little bit of edible eggplant. And I'm just dipping my brush in my inks. So I got an email from Catherine, who's here this morning, who was asking some questions. She was trying to create her watercolor home, right? And what she meant by that was that you've got all of these mediums in your stash, right, that can do watercolor effects. Your inks, your paints, your markers, all the things. And on this channel and in my lives, I'm always kind of sharing a little bit of a mashup of both, of all. How you can get watercolor effects with these mediums. So learning, it can be kind of overwhelming, and learning about all of the different mediums that are out there, or mediums that are in your stash that you didn't know how you could push them even further. I like mediums, art mediums that I can go in and I can always get watercolor effects with. And like all of your stamping inks, you can easily, I want to do this one. Get watercolor effects with them. I like the Gina K inks because they've got that, they are water reactive. And they're just so vibrant. And you get all these, I just love this. Look at that variation of color. When that dye separates, you get all of these different kinds of versions of that edible eggplant. And actually, if anybody has Daniel Smith watercolors, look up Moon Glow. If you have that in your stash, look it up. It's a granulating color. It's super gorgeous. Okay. I think I'm going to leave these two leafery pieces alone. Kind of digging the way they look. We've added some detail to our hydrangeas. Debbie just shared, love watercolor. It's my jam. It's my jam too. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, when the sap green faded back, we can see I've got a lot of granulation here, but I've lost some of my detail. So I'm going to come back in. This time I'm going to go in, I'll take a little bit of fresh asparagus, put that down. I've got my brush, going to get this a little bit wet. And then I'm just going to go ahead in and just add a little bit of that color back in. And this technique is called glazing, or let's make it easy, layering. We're layering another layer of color over top what we've already done, and I'm just whooshing it across a little bit here. Let's go ahead and put a little bit in our handle. And I'm just adding a little bit of that color in there. Like, yes. She likes the edible eggplant. I love the edible eggplant. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more here. Okay, digging it. Gonna let that dry. Got a little bit of blooming happening here because I just got that water. We put ink on top of watercolor, which is giving us a very different effect right there. I kind of dig it. I'm gonna come in and drop a little bit of yellow. I've got some wild dandelion here. I actually have some wild dandelion in a re-inker. So let's just put a little droplet of that down. Ooh, that's intense. Now, I've shared this on the channel before. When you take yellow and you drop it in the wet areas over top of greens, it jacks up the luminosity. It just brightens everything up. Makes it super, super bright. And I'm going to just see how that yellow just changed it and it got super, super bright there. I'm going to come in, add a little bit of fresh asparagus to my leafery here. Kind of overdoing it a little bit, getting a little bit too much water in here, but that's okay. Just dropping it in. I kind of want this cup to have that sort of 70s avocado like green look. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? That 70s avocado green. It was, since the inspiration for this card was a memory of my grandmother and her hydrangeas and her always giving me mint tea. She also had that 70s kind of avocado look and feel in her kitchen. I'm just going to turn my camera a little bit here. There we go. In her kitchen. And that color is like kind of cool. It's coming back, right? It's coming back on trend, so to speak, that avocado like color. All right, I've got all my pieces here. Let me clean up. We've got a really washy watercolor look. I would like to know in the chat how many of you are going to give this technique a try. I share this technique a lot, but sometimes that washy watercolor thing intimidates people. But look at that. How fun is that? I like that splashy kind of look. And adding that center back in, it just kind of brings a little more detail to it. All right, I've got my piece of, let's move all my pieces here. I've got my piece of cardstock here. This is actually my piece of watercolor paper. Let's get my glue going. Kathy said she's going to give it a try. Yes. How many people, tell me in the chat, how many people have felt a little more comfortable with your watercolor techniques since watching the lives or watching other people do watercolor techniques? How many people have felt more comfortable in giving it a go? I'm going to lay this down and just get my layer on. Catherine said, count me in, probably this afternoon. Yes. Give it a go. I love it, love it, love it. All right, we're going to build this card. And this time, compared to last week, I'm putting the card base on first instead of putting it on last. Now, I want to do my background. Now that I might regret putting it on first now that I think about it. I want to put my background in. Now, the background that I did in my sample, here's our background stamp. But the background I did in my sample was in, did I do edible eggplant? I think I did plum punch. Robbie just shared, watching you is giving me a lot of confidence. You are encouraging to watercolor. Thank you, Gloria. Rhonda said, me too, but I'm still a beginner. That's okay. We're all beginners. We're all trying new things all the time. We're always learning new things. And I think it's fantastic. I learn new things, and I've been doing this for a while. I think that's the beauty of it. Learning, like every time I pick up a new different kind of brand of watercolor or ink or whatever, I've got to relearn how to use it because they're all very different. I'm going to take this plum punch and I'm going to ink this up. At first, I thought, maybe I should use a lighter pink, but I'm going to go ahead and come in with plum punch. And I'm going to just kind of stamp this pattern on the diagonal. And now that I think about it, I'm going to try to keep it on the cardstock and not get it into the green. And now that I think about it, I probably should have. That's gonna get into the green a little. Well, maybe not. Okay, I probably should have done this first. It's okay that I've got it overlapping because I want to hit it with a smidge of water. Look at that plum punch. Now I have my water like way up here, but look at that. So instead of doing the splatter effect, I've done this little, hit this with a little bit of water and just let that dye ink kind of do its thing. But I also had it sitting on the cardstock. So let me go ahead and hit this with a little bit of heat just to dry it up so that we can get moving on the next page. Come on. Okay. Let's take a peek how our splatters are looking. Kind of digging it. I'm kind of digging it. First I didn't think I was going to dig it, but now I am. Okay. Now let's just go ahead and start assembling the card. I've got some, let's see. I've got some tape here. Some foam tape. This card is coming together pretty quickly. Let's take a little bit of foam tape. I'm going to put it on the back of my, we're going to start with putting it on the back of the mug. Oops. So I can ground it. Put that about right here because I've got a lot of things that are going to be popping out. Now look, because we've got that hole that cuts out, you can see the pattern underneath it. I love that. I love that Gina added that to the stamp set. I didn't think of it when I was creating it, and she added it, and it is like everything. It's perfect. Now, to get the florals in, we've got 3 big ones and 2 smaller ones. I'm going to start with the larger floral. Where's my tape? Look at all these little bits here. Let's take a little piece off. I'm going to start with one of the bigger pieces of hydrangea. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Ooh, my tape came off. Okay, and I'm going to start right here on the corner. Then I'm going to start to build up and out. So I'm adding that piece. And then I'm going to add my other piece right here. And just start building my, just put in the 3 big blooms first. And start building around. Okay. Let's go ahead and add that in. Yeah, I think I'm going to want that back there. Just a little bit of variation. Anybody out there, anybody in the chat have experience with hydrangeas that are becoming persnickety? I'm going to be working on my hydrangea and trying to get it to come back to life and give me a little bit of a different result this spring. Okay, 3 right here. Now I'm just going to take and put a little bit of glue on the back of my little hydrangea, and you can see with the watercolor paper, there's some density to the paper, so it's giving me an opportunity to got a little glue nugget there. It's giving me an opportunity to just bend it a little bit to get a little extra texture. I'm going to tuck that in right underneath there and just put my finger down and hold for a moment because it's got a lot of stuff to stick to. So I've got my little cup of hydrangeas. Ah, love it. They're such pretty flowers. Violas and violets, all of those pretty spring like flower, although technically hydrangeas are more of a summer flower, I think. All right, I'm going to tuck that one right in there. And now I'm just going to tuck in some of the leafery and the other, ooh, look at that. See, I didn't hold it long enough and it wanted to jump the shark. Okay, there we go. All right, let's add a little bit of glue. We're just gonna kind of tuck that little piece of mint right there. I love mint tea. I love a good mint tea. It's good stuff. Let's get a little leafery in here. Oop, tuck that little leaf mint right underneath there. And you could be done. You could just take and do more hydrangeas and kind of create that little hydrangea puffball that makes it so cute. I'm going to take these two pieces and kind of nest them behind somehow. Look at that little baby just does not want to stay. All right. She just did not want to stay there. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of foam tape behind her and pop her up. She is watercolor, so watercolor paper needs a little extra sticky on the back of it to get it going. I think I'm going to tuck her in right here. Figure out where I want those other leafery pieces. I want those leafery pieces to just kind of stick up and out. Maybe here. Let's move that little leafery piece. Kind of tuck that one up there. It's getting a little wild and wonky. And then maybe right there. And right there. So if the tail's too big, because I've got that foam tape underneath there, if the tail's too big, just cut it. Wendy just shared, good tip to pop certain petals up first and then you tuck the other ones underneath. If you do that, it enables you to create all that texture and dimension. And some things are coming forward and some things are going backward. I think I want that one right there. It's kind of, I'm going to push that one in a little bit. We've got whoosh going. I don't know. I feel like I need something right there. Maybe not. Maybe I just tuck those two pieces right there. Or I don't use them both. Maybe I don't use them at all. I don't know. I do want to tuck that in there because I want it to kind of look like a bouquet. Oh, the last minute decisions, right, friends? I'm going to tuck that in there. And then I'm also going to just kind of squeeze it and pinch it a little bit. So it really gets that kind of leafery texture to it. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. Just popping my finger in the center. And then just pop it in a little bit. Okay. And I am going to pop that one right there. I'm going to tuck that in and just kind of let that little flower kind of tuck around. I don't know. Part of me wants to put a little something right there. So I think we're going to do that. Let's pick one. I think I've got this little guy right here. And instead of running it in the die cutter, actually the little friend underneath. Instead of running it in the die cutter, I'm going to hand cut it. There is a die for this, but that's all right. We're just going to cut it real quick because I feel like that top, I need a little something right there. Who else thinks I need a little something right there? Ah, Kathy just shared, learning how to prune my hydrangea has been a learning curve. Less cut back has been giving me better blooms. Oh, good advice. So, Kathy, I have never cut my hydrangea. I've never cut it back, ever. So, over the years, it's just gotten unruly. Like, I will take off the blooms and I will deadhead it and things like that. But I've never cut it back. And I'm feeling like I'm going to have to prune in order to get it to, I'm going to have to give it a prune in order to get it to come to life a little better this year. So I've got that little bloom, and I kind of feel like I'm just going to tuck it right there in the center. Yeah, Kathy agreed. I needed a little something in the middle here because it's just got whoosh, and it needs a little bit of height to it. I need to refill my glue. I know I said that last week and I still haven't done it. I need to refill the glue. Let's go ahead and tuck that little guy right there. Just put my finger and hold that down. Oh my gosh. I think that made a huge difference. That made a huge difference in the card. Okay, I've got some sequins and embellishments. I'm using Emerald City. I do love the Emerald City. Let's put a little bit down here. We're going to pop some glue bits. Everybody's saying that looks good. Yeah, I think so too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's pop one down here. Let's pop one over there. Just putting down some random bloops of glue. And then I'm just going to pop these on. I've got my little Gina K sticky pokey thing. Words are hard, right? I have completely forgotten the name of, I need a little more glue there. The name of this sticky pokey thing. Okay, Catherine's sharing some great advice for the hydrangea. I'm going to pop that up just so everybody can see it in case you're having hydrangea things too. Cut back after flowering about 1/3 to 1/2, but before August 1st. Yeah, I kind of thought so. And now I'm thinking about doing it because the weather's been so mild that, I'm wondering if that is going to hurt my plant. Alkaline soil above 7.0 gives pink, lower increases bluer tones. If you cut in the spring, you get smaller blooms, but more of them. Okay. All right, that's very helpful. Thank you, Catherine. Gloria said it's the pick tool. She's right. It's the picky tool. I know I have another glue boot somewhere, and I got one right there. Okay, 1, 2, 2, 2. I'm kind of digging that. I'm digging the way that looks. Loving the way that looks. Okay, this card has turned out to be super washy. Super washy watercolor. Let's take a look at those greens now that they've dried. Look at those greens. Ah, and you know what? One of the things I'm going to share, I mentioned that, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. So if you go to if you are in my community at craftyourjoy.com, I've got this color wheel in there. This is a Mission Gold color wheel. This is what a pocket color wheel looks like. But we talked a little bit about color mixing and mixing color. This is a little bit to keep the cat out of it, believe me. So this is a little color wheel. So when you're working with color mixing and when you take a color that's across from itself on the wheel, you use that color to neutralize the other color. So that's what I was talking about with mixing greens. It's not a hard, I don't like hard and fast rules with color mixing. There are some, but I don't like teaching them because I think you should try new things and you should get to know your colors and mix them and see what they look like. So I'm loving the way this card came out. Loving it. It's super washy. Here was the original inspiration I shared at launch, and that's very soft and cute. And I just remembered something I wanted to do that I didn't do with this card. In the Friend Loves at All Times, I've got this little heart bits. These little heart bits. I'm going to take that heart There's also one in the new stamp set called Be Encouraged, but it's one little heart with the tea bags. I'm going to ink this up with a little bit of wild dandelion, and I'm going to pop that little heart right there just to kind of create that little flow. I talked a little bit last week about how I add these little bits into my stamp set designs so that you can have like sneak in these little surprises, you know, with your cards. Ah, I'm loving it. That background with that washy kind of feel to it, just a little bit of water added that splatter effect. Loving it. Absolutely loving it. Okay, here was the original inspiration. You can see I did like a different kind of leafery up here. And then here was the one that was a little less mash-uppy, right? Oh, I'm digging it. I'm digging it. All right, let's go ahead and we'll come back to the front camera. Let's get the old glasses on first. All right, so that I can see what I'm doing. Hello, hello. Okay, that was a super fun, easygoing card for today, and we did it all within an hour. I would love to see you try it with the stamps in your stash and just kind of, you know, do a few watercolor effects. These watercolor techniques that I share every week and then we try something new, they just all build on each other. So if you just give one a try, you can experiment a little bit more and add to your repertoire of techniques. So I hope you found today's tutorial super valuable. I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I kind of digressed a little bit on the mixing greens. Let me know if like color mixing is something you might like to learn. I know one of the things that we came, some of the things that came out of last week was watching me paint and maybe doing some tutorials that are like that too. So I'd love to hear from you, what you think, what you'd like to learn, what you'd like to see here on the Craft Your Joy Live show. Okay, I'll be back next week with a new mashup. I hope you really enjoyed this week. There was a lot that came out with the new Gina K Designs release. I'm loving my brand new stamp set, Be Encouraged. It's very encouraging and a little cheeky with the encouragement sentiment. We'll be working with that next week. But I really just kind of wanted to start off the weekend, help you craft your joy with a little bit of washy watercolor and have some fun. Okay, don't forget, if you're interested, hop on my email list. I send an email out once a week. It lets you know when everything is happening, when I have new classes, when I have new releases, all the things. And that way I'm sure that it gets to you in your inbox. When I share things in social media, I'm never really sure if everybody sees it 100%. But you know what? It is what it is. You can feel free to join my email list if you're interested. Links in the description. I also have a free class, and you can join my free community at on my online classroom at craftyourjoy.com. Just a couple things. I know many of you already know about these things, but I like to share them because we do have new people every week. So I'm taking a look at some of the comments. Wendy said yes to color mixing. Everybody kind of seems to be into color mixing. I feel a series coming, a series on different colors and color mixing. And yeah, I can see it. Let's do it. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. I'm so grateful you joined me today. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions along the way. I'd love to help you in your watercoloring journey. Okay, have a great weekend, friends. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.